Welcome back to the channel everyone, and thank you for joining me today as we dive into one of the most unbelievable and fascinating stories in modern coin history, a story that proves that sometimes the smallest, most ordinary objects hiding in pockets, jars, and old drawers can secretly carry jaw-dropping fortunes. Because today we are talking about a 1977 1-cent coin that has been whispered about in collector circles as having a theoretical value reaching an astonishing $379 million. A number so massive it sounds impossible for a penny, yet when you unravel the web of errors, minting mistakes, historical circumstances, and once-in-a-lifetime possibilities surrounding this humble copper coin, you begin to understand how such a valuation even enters the conversation. And as always, this channel exists to explore these rare stories, spark curiosity, and remind you why checking your change might be the most exciting treasure hunt you can take part in. So settle in and imagine holding a simple 1977 Lincoln cent between your fingers while realizing that under the right conditions it could represent generational wealth beyond imagination. Because the value of coins is not determined by face value but by a perfect storm of rarity, error type, historical timing, condition, survival rate, collector psychology, and the extreme edge cases that can push an already rare piece into mythical territory. And the 1977 1-cent sits at a unique crossroads in American numismatic history, since it was minted during a period of transition, pressure, and subtle experimentation at the United States Mint, a time when copper prices, production demands, and mechanical wear all converged to create an environment ripe for mistakes. And while hundreds of millions of 1977 cents were produced across Philadelphia and Denver, making the date itself seem common on the surface, it is precisely within that massive production that the rarest and most valuable errors can hide undetected. Because when mints strike coins at high speed day after day, microscopic flaws can escalate into dramatic anomalies, and when those anomalies stack on top of each other in a single coin, the result can be something so rare that it effectively becomes unique, and uniqueness is the foundation of extreme value, especially when paired with a famous design like the Lincoln cent, which has been collected passionately for over a century, meaning demand is not limited to a niche audience but spreads across generations of collectors, investors, historians, and even casual enthusiasts who grew up with pennies as part of everyday life. And the 1977 cent represents the final years of the traditional copper composition before the major shift to copper-plated zinc in the early 1980s, which alone gives high-grade copper cents from this era additional desirability. But when you add error potential to that composition, the stakes rise dramatically, because copper planchets behave differently under stress than later zinc cores, making certain error types more dramatic, more visually striking, and more valuable. And one of the most talked about possibilities with a 1977 cent involves the theoretical existence of a wrong planchet strike, where the coin is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or another metal entirely. And while documented examples of cents struck on silver, aluminum, or even experimental alloy planchets exist for other years, the idea of a confirmed 1977 cent struck on a transitional or experimental metal, such as a prototype alloy tested quietly by the mint during periods of metal cost concern, would instantly elevate that coin into legendary status, because experimental strikes are often never meant to leave the mint at all, and when one does escape, it becomes a tangible piece of hidden history, something that was not supposed to exist outside government walls, and collectors pay extraordinary sums for that privilege. But the value story does not stop there, because errors can compound, meaning a single coin can exhibit multiple mistakes at once, and it is in these compound errors that valuations can spiral into uncharted territory. Imagine a 1977 cent struck on the wrong metal, with a dramatic off-center strike that leaves part of the design missing, combined with a broad strike that expands the coin beyond normal diameter, paired with a major double die obverse where Lincoln's portrait appears doubled to the naked eye, and topped off with a die cap or retained cut that distorts the lettering in a way never seen on another example. Such a coin would not just be rare, it would be effectively irreplaceable, and in numismatics irreplaceability is what fuels record-breaking numbers, because wealthy collectors are not competing for many examples, they are competing for one. And when 2 or 3 determined buyers decide they must own that single coin at any cost, auction results can defy logic and precedent, pushing prices far beyond what guides or past sales could ever predict, and the $379 million figure often discussed in speculative circles represents the outer edge of what could happen if a perfect storm coin emerged, one that combined every major error category with pristine condition and a story that could be authenticated, documented, and displayed as the ultimate anomaly of the Lincoln Cent series, and condition alone plays a massive role here, because error coins are often found damaged, circulated, or mishandled. Yet if such a dramatic 1977 error were somehow preserved in near mint or mint state condition, with full original surfaces, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability would multiply exponentially, because high-grade error coins are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, and grading services play a critical role in legitimizing such pieces, since a top-tier certification from a respected authority can transform a curious oddity into a globally recognized treasure, opening the door to elite auction houses and international buyers. And then there is the double die phenomenon, one of the most beloved and valuable error types among collectors, caused by misalignment during the die creation process rather than during the strike itself, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same doubling, and while minor doubling exists on many coins, dramatic doubled dies where dates, lettering, and portraits show strong separation are exceptionally rare, and if a 1977 double die obverse or reverse were discovered that rivaled or exceeded the famous 1955 double die cent in strength and visibility, it would instantly become one of the most important modern error coins ever found, and if that double die were paired with additional errors or unusual characteristics, the value conversation would escalate rapidly, because the coin would bridge 2 powerful collector markets at once, the double die specialists and the dramatic error specialists, and crossover appeal is another hidden driver of massive prices, since coins that attract multiple collector communities simultaneously generate more competition and higher bids, and beyond mechanical and die errors, there is also the possibility of extreme die wear or failure, such as late-stage die breaks, shattered dies, or massive cuts that transform the design into something almost abstract. And while such errors are sometimes dismissed as ugly or damaged, the most extreme examples are actually celebrated for showing the violent end of a working die, capturing a moment of industrial breakdown frozen in metal, and a 1977 cent exhibiting an unprecedented die failure pattern, especially one not recorded in any reference books, would immediately draw scholarly attention as well as collector desire, because it would expand the known catalog of mint errors, adding new knowledge to the field, and coins that change what we know tend to be valued far above those that simply fit into existing categories, and historical context further enriches the story, because 1977 was a year of economic uncertainty, inflation concerns, and rising metal prices, which placed pressure on the mint to produce coins efficiently while keeping costs down, increasing the likelihood of worn dies being used longer than ideal, machinery being pushed harder, and quality control occasionally slipping, all of which create fertile ground for errors. And when you consider the sheer volume of coins produced that year, the statistical likelihood of extreme outliers increases, even if the odds remain astronomically small. Next. 1987 1 cent, a penny that most people would overlook without a second thought, yet under extraordinary circumstances and rare combinations of minting errors, mistakes, and historical anomalies, this humble coin has been theorized in collector lore to reach an astonishing value of up to $92 million, a figure that sounds outrageous until you begin to understand how numismatic value truly works, how rarity is born from accidents, how demand is fueled by legend, and how the convergence of multiple unlikely factors can transform a common cent into a once-in-a-lifetime artifact, And as always, this story is not just about money but about history, mechanics, probability, and the endless fascination humans have with discovering something extraordinary where no one else thought to look. And the 1987 Lincoln cent exists at a fascinating point in U.S. coinage history because it was struck during the zinc era, when pennies were no longer primarily copper but instead consisted of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a change that introduced an entirely new range of potential errors and failures that did not exist in earlier decades. And while billions of zinc cents were produced, the very nature of their construction made them vulnerable to dramatic mistakes, especially when something went wrong during planchet preparation, plating, or striking. And these vulnerabilities are precisely what opened the door to extreme rarity, because while most errors are minor and common, a tiny fraction escalate into spectacular anomalies that are so unusual they challenge existing classifications, and it is within this narrow slice of possibility that the 1987 cents legend begins, because one of the most significant error categories tied to this year involves wrong planchet strikes, including the theoretical existence of a 1987 cent struck on a leftover copper planchet, foreign planchet, or experimental alloy. And while copper cents officially ended in 1982, history has shown that stray planchets can linger in mint facilities for years, becoming trapped in machinery or storage and later resurfacing accidentally, and documented examples from other years prove that such mistakes are not merely fantasy, meaning the discovery of a confirmed 1987 cent struck on a solid copper planchet or another unexpected metal would instantly place that coin among the rarest modern U.S. issues ever known, because it would represent a direct contradiction of official minting standards. A physical anomaly that should not exist, and collectors are irresistibly drawn to things that defy the rules, and the value of such a coin would be magnified further if its weight, composition, and metallurgical profile confirmed it beyond any doubt, because absolute certainty is the foundation of confidence, and confidence is what unlocks the highest levels of bidding, and beyond wrong planchets. The zinc era introduced the phenomenon of plating errors, where the copper coating fails in dramatic ways, sometimes peeling, bubbling, splitting, or missing entirely, and while minor plating blisters are relatively common, extreme plating failures where large sections of zinc are exposed, combined with other strike anomalies, become far rarer, especially when the coin remains otherwise well preserved. And a 1987 cent exhibiting a catastrophic plating failure paired with a major off-center strike or broad strike would already command enormous attention, but when you begin stacking multiple error types onto a single coin, the probability collapses to near zero, and near zero probability is exactly what drives astronomical valuations, because such coins are not merely rare, they are functionally unique, and uniqueness is the highest currency in the collectible world. And another powerful contributor to the $92 million valuation theory lies in double die varieties, errors created during the die-making process rather than during the strike itself, resulting in strong repeatable doubling on dates, lettering, or Lincoln's portrait. And while many double dies are subtle, dramatic double dies that are clearly visible without magnification ignite intense interest. And if an undiscovered 1987 double die obverse or reverse existed with bold separation comparable to the most famous examples in the series, it would instantly become a centerpiece of modern numismatics. And if that double die were paired with other anomalies such as a wrong planchet or a major strike error, the coin would transcend traditional categories and enter the realm of legendary pieces, because it would appeal simultaneously to variety collectors, error specialists, and high-end investors, creating a bidding environment where price ceilings effectively dissolve, and condition again plays a decisive role, because most dramatic errors survive in poor shape. Yet if a coin with multiple extreme errors were preserved in mint state, with strong luster, minimal contact marks, and intact surfaces, its desirability would skyrocket, since collectors know that finding another example with the same characteristics and quality would be virtually impossible. And then there are strike-related errors unique to high-speed modern presses, such as multiple strikes, rotated dies, partial collars, and dramatic off-center strikes that leave the design floating on the planchet in surreal ways. And while these errors exist across many years, the zinc composition of 1987 cents makes certain combinations far rarer, because zinc planchets tend to deform or split under extreme stress, meaning a well-defined, multi-struck zinc cent without catastrophic damage would represent an extraordinary mechanical anomaly, and if such a coin also displayed misalignment between obverse and reverse, or an extreme rotation beyond standard tolerances, it would further elevate its status, because each additional deviation from normal minting standards compounds rarity exponentially rather than linearly. And beyond physical errors, the broader historical and cultural context of the late 1980s contributes subtly but meaningfully to the story, because this was a period when quality control relied heavily on automation, meaning certain mistakes could slip through unnoticed until long after the coins entered circulation, and it was also a time before widespread digital documentation among collectors, meaning some rare varieties may have existed for years before being recognized, creating the possibility that a truly extraordinary 1987 cent could still be undiscovered or misidentified in a collection or hoard, and that sense of unfinished discovery keeps interest alive, fueling speculation and imagination, and speculation itself plays a powerful role in value formation, because markets are driven not only by what exists but by what could exist, and the idea that a single penny from 1987 could rewrite price records ignites the same psychological forces that drive treasure hunting. Lottery dreams, and record-breaking auctions, and narrative cannot be underestimated here, because if such a coin were discovered by an ordinary person in everyday circumstances, the story would resonate far beyond the numismatic community, drawing media attention and public fascination. And widespread exposure can introduce ultra-wealthy buyers who view the coin not just as a collectible but as a cultural artifact, a symbol of chance, error, and hidden value, and when buyers with deep pockets compete for a single object that captures public imagination, traditional valuation frameworks collapse, as has been seen repeatedly in the worlds of art, antiques, and historical documents, and a unique or near-unique 1987 cent with unprecedented errors would fit perfectly into that pattern, especially because the Lincoln cent is one of the most recognizable coins in American history, making its transformation into a nine-figure artifact all the more compelling. And there is also the academic angle, because a previously unknown or extreme error can advance understanding of minting processes, becoming a reference point for future study, and coins that contribute to knowledge often carry prestige beyond their physical attributes, increasing institutional interest from museums and foundations, which can further influence market dynamics, and when institutional recognition intersects with private collecting, prices can reach levels that once seemed absurd, and the $92 million figure attached to the 1987 cent represents that outer boundary, not as a guaranteed price but as a theoretical peak where uniqueness, condition, narrative, demand, and timing align perfectly, illustrating how value in numismatics is not static but elastic, stretching to accommodate the rarest and most compelling stories, and whether or not such a coin has already been found or remains hidden. Next. 1983 D1 cent, a coin that most people would never look at twice, yet under extraordinarily rare circumstances involving errors, mistakes, minting anomalies, and once-in-a-generation coincidences, has been theorized by collectors and numismatic thinkers to carry a potential value reaching an unbelievable $76 million. A number that sounds impossible until you slowly unravel how coin value is actually created, how rarity is born from accidents, how history shapes desirability, and how a single overlooked mistake can transform a common zinc penny into a legendary artifact, and the 1983 D Lincoln cent sits at a uniquely volatile moment in United States minting history because it was struck during the early years of the copper-plated zinc transition, a period when the mint was still adapting to new materials, new production challenges, and new quality control issues. And this transition alone opened the door to error types that had never existed before, because unlike solid copper planchets, zinc cores behave unpredictably under pressure, heat, and plating stress, meaning that mistakes during planchet preparation or striking could produce results far more dramatic than anything seen in earlier decades. And while billions of 1983 cents were produced across the Philadelphia and Denver mints, sheer volume does not eliminate rarity but rather increases the chance that extreme outliers can occur, because when machines run non-stop at high speed, even microscopic deviations can compound into monumental errors, and it is within this narrow statistical window that the 1983 D-cent story truly begins, because one of the most powerful and valuable possibilities associated with this coin involves the existence of a wrong planchet strike, particularly a 1983 D-cent struck on a solid copper planchet rather than the intended zinc core. And while copper cents officially ended in 1982, history has repeatedly proven that leftover planchets can remain lodged in machinery, trapped in bins, or mixed unintentionally into later production runs, and confirmed examples of 1983 copper cents already exist and are among the most famous modern era coins in American numismatics, instantly validating the idea that such a mistake is not hypothetical but real. And now imagine taking that already legendary error and adding the D-mint mark, instantly narrowing the population further and increasing desirability because Denver minted copper 1983 cents are significantly rarer than their Philadelphia counterparts, and then imagine that such a coin survives in exceptional condition, with original surfaces, minimal contact marks, and clear diagnostic features that confirm its authenticity beyond any doubt, because authenticity is the foundation upon which extreme value is built, and a confirmed 1983 D copper cent alone commands extraordinary attention. But when collectors speculate about valuations reaching into the tens of millions, they are not thinking about a typical example, they are imagining a perfect storm coin, one that layers multiple rare errors onto a single planchet, creating a piece that may be unique in the entire history of the Lincoln Cent series, and this is where the $76 million figure enters the conversation. Not as an everyday market price but as the outer boundary of what could happen if such a coin were discovered and presented under ideal circumstances, and beyond wrong planchets, the zinc era introduced a host of plating errors that can drastically affect value when extreme, because copper plating is applied as a thin layer over the zinc core, and when that process fails catastrophically, the results can be visually stunning and mechanically bizarre, including missing plating on one or both sides, split plating seams, massive blisters, peeling sheets of copper, or even complete exposure of the zinc core across large areas. And while minor plating flaws are relatively common and modestly valued, an extreme plating error combined with other anomalies becomes exponentially rarer, especially when the coin retains structural integrity and clear design elements. And imagine a 1983 D-cent struck on a copper planchet that also exhibits dramatic plating anomalies inconsistent with normal production, suggesting an experimental or transitional process error that was never intended to reach circulation. Such a coin would not only be rare but historically disruptive, forcing experts to re-examine assumptions about mint procedures during that year, and coins that challenge existing knowledge carry prestige beyond their metal content, because they contribute new information to the historical record, and this scholarly importance feeds directly into value, because collectors and institutions alike compete for pieces that advance understanding. And then there is the realm of double die errors, one of the most beloved categories among collectors because they are created during die preparation rather than during the strike, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same doubling. And while many double dies are subtle and require magnification, dramatic double dies with strong separation visible to the naked eye ignite intense excitement. And if an undiscovered 1983 D double die obverse existed with bold doubling on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile comparable to the most famous double dies in history, it would instantly become one of the most important modern varieties ever identified. And if that double die were paired with a wrong planchet or extreme strike error, the coin would transcend traditional categories, appealing simultaneously to variety collectors, error specialists, and high-end investors, and crossover appeal is one of the most powerful drivers of extreme value because it expands the buyer pool while limiting supply to essentially one, and the Denver Mint adds another layer of intrigue because certain error types are historically less common from Denver compared to Philadelphia, making confirmed Denver examples more desirable by default, and when you combine that with exceptional condition, the odds of encountering another comparable coin drop to near zero, and near zero odds are what fuel astronomical valuations, because wealthy collectors are not competing for many examples, they are competing for the only example, and when two or more determined buyers decide they must own that singular piece at any cost. Price becomes a secondary consideration, and this dynamic has been observed repeatedly across collectible markets, from rare art to historical manuscripts, and coins are no exception, especially when the object in question is small, iconic, and culturally familiar like the Lincoln cent, and strike-related errors further deepen the pool of possibilities, because high-speed modern presses can produce dramatic off-center strikes, broad strikes, partial collar errors, multiple strikes, and rotated dies, and while these errors exist across many dates, the zinc composition of 1983 cents makes certain combinations far rarer, because zinc tends to crack, split, or deform under extreme stress, meaning that a well-defined, dramatically misstruck 1983 D cent that retains crisp detail without catastrophic damage would represent an extraordinary mechanical anomaly, and if such a strike error occurred on a wrong planchet or double die, the result would be a coin so improbable that it effectively becomes irreplaceable, and irreplaceability is the true engine of nine-figure valuations, because no price guide can account for something that has no comparable precedent, and beyond the mechanics of minting, historical context amplifies the narrative, because 1983 was a year when the mint was under intense pressure to reduce costs and increase efficiency, leading to extended die usage, accelerated production schedules, and occasional lapses in quality control, all of which increase the likelihood of unusual errors slipping through unnoticed, and at the same time, the collecting community was still adapting to the zinc transition, meaning some rare anomalies may have gone unrecognized or undervalued for years, creating the tantalizing possibility that extraordinary examples could still be hiding in collections, jars, or forgotten rolls. And that sense of unfinished discovery fuels ongoing fascination and speculation, because collectors are not just reacting to known facts but imagining what might still be found, and imagination plays a powerful role in value formation, because markets are driven as much by stories and possibilities as by confirmed realities, and if a previously unknown or misunderstood 1983 D error were to surface today, supported by rigorous testing, professional certification, and clear provenance. Next. 1972 1 cent, a simple Lincoln penny that most people have held, spent, or ignored without a second thought, yet under extraordinarily rare circumstances involving minting errors, mechanical mistakes, historical timing, and incredible possibilities, has been theorized by collectors to reach an almost unimaginable value of up to $62 million, a number that sounds unbelievable until you begin to understand how rarity is born, how mistakes become masterpieces, and how a single coin can rise above billions of others to become a once-in-a-lifetime artifact, and this channel exists to explore exactly these kinds of mysteries, to remind you why checking your change still matters, and to show how history sometimes hides its greatest treasures in plain sight. And the 1972 Lincoln cent occupies a uniquely important position in American coinage history because it was produced during a time when the United States Mint was operating at enormous speed to meet demand, relying heavily on mechanical processes that were powerful but imperfect, and it was also a period when quality control standards, while strict, were still vulnerable to certain kinds of die preparation errors that modern technology has largely eliminated, and this combination created fertile ground for one of the most famous and dramatic error types ever seen on a penny, the double die, which lies at the heart of why the 1972 cent is so revered, because unlike strike doubling, which occurs when a coin shifts during striking, a true doubled die is created during the manufacturing of the die itself, meaning the doubling is engraved into the die and then transferred consistently to every coin struck from it. And in 1972 one particular doubled die obverse emerged that displayed extraordinarily strong and unmistakable doubling on the date, the word liberty, and the motto "In God We Trust," doubling so bold that it can be seen clearly without magnification, making it one of the most visually dramatic doubled dies in the entire Lincoln cent series, and this alone already places the 1972 double die cent among the most valuable and desirable error coins ever produced. But when collectors speak of values reaching into the tens of millions, they are not referring to an ordinary example of this variety. They are imagining the outer limits of possibility, where an already famous error is combined with additional anomalies, extraordinary condition, and near uniqueness, because value at this level is not about common rarity but about singularity, and the 1972 double die provides the perfect foundation for such a legend because it is already recognized, documented, and loved, meaning any extreme variant or extraordinary specimen connected to it would instantly attract massive attention, and condition is one of the first multipliers in this equation, because while many 1972 double die cents exist, the vast majority were circulated, mishandled, or damaged before their significance was widely known, meaning pristine examples are far rarer than the raw population numbers suggest. And now imagine a 1972 double die cent preserved in near-perfect mint-state condition, with blazing original luster, razor-sharp details, minimal contact marks, and exceptional eye appeal, because high-grade examples of famous varieties command exponentially higher prices than average ones. And if such a coin also exhibited additional errors beyond the doubled die, its rarity would leap into an entirely different category, and one of the most tantalizing possibilities involves the existence of a 1972 double die cent struck on the wrong planchet, because wrong planchet errors represent a fundamental failure of minting protocol, producing a coin that should not exist. And history has shown that cents have occasionally been struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even other compositions, and if a 1972 double die cent were discovered struck on an experimental alloy, a foreign planchet, or an incorrect metal thickness, it would represent a convergence of two major error types in a single coin, something so unlikely that it could be unique, and uniqueness is the cornerstone of extreme value. Because when a coin cannot be replicated or replaced, it becomes the ultimate prize for collectors who seek the rarest of the rare, and beyond wrong planchets. Strike errors add another layer of possibility, because high-speed presses can produce off-center strikes, broad strikes, partial collar errors, multiple strikes, and dramatic misalignments, and while such errors are known, they become exponentially rarer when combined with a major double die. And imagine a 1972 double die cent that is also dramatically off-center, with portions of the design missing or floating on the planchet, yet still clearly displaying the bold doubled lettering that defines the variety. Such a coin would be visually stunning and mechanically fascinating, capturing multiple stages of minting failure in a single object, and collectors are irresistibly drawn to coins that tell complex stories, because they offer more than just rarity. They offer insight into how coins are made and how things can go wrong, and then there is the possibility of die state significance, because double die coins can exist in different stages depending on how early or late they were struck from the die, and early die state examples often show the strongest doubling and the sharpest details, while later states may show die wear, cracks, or breaks. And a 1972 double die cent struck at a transitional moment when the die was beginning to fail could exhibit dramatic die cracks, cuds, or other failures alongside the doubling, effectively capturing both the birth and death of a die in one piece. And such a coin would be of immense interest not only to collectors but also to researchers and historians, because it would document a moment of mechanical stress frozen in time, and Coins that contribute to knowledge often carry prestige beyond their monetary value, and prestige feeds directly into desirability, and desirability fuels competition, and competition is what pushes prices into extraordinary territory, and historical context further enhances the story because the early 1970s were a time of economic change, inflation concerns, and rising metal costs, placing pressure on the mint to produce efficiently and economically, sometimes extending die usage longer than ideal, which increases the likelihood of errors slipping through, and at the same time, public awareness of error coins was not as widespread as it is today, meaning some extraordinary pieces may have entered circulation unnoticed, surviving decades before being rediscovered, and that possibility keeps collectors searching and dreaming, because numismatics is not just about known rarities but about the hope of discovery, and hope is a powerful force in any market, and when a coin carries both proven significance and unexplored potential, it becomes a magnet for speculation and imagination, and narrative plays a critical role here, because a coin discovered in an ordinary setting, such as a roll from a bank or an old jar in a drawer, that turns out to be an unprecedented 1972 error, creates a story that resonates far beyond the collecting community, capturing public fascination and media attention, and mainstream exposure can transform a coin from a niche collectible into a cultural phenomenon, attracting buyers who may not normally collect coins but are drawn to the symbolism of an everyday penny becoming a multimillion-dollar treasure. And when new money enters a niche market, especially money driven by emotion and prestige rather than tradition, price ceilings can vanish, as has been seen repeatedly in art, antiques, and historical memorabilia. And the Lincoln cent is particularly well suited to this kind of transformation because it is one of the most recognizable coins ever produced, making the idea of a penny worth $62 million both shocking and irresistible, and certification and authentication are essential components of this process because a coin of such potential value must be verified beyond any doubt, and top-tier grading services provide not just confirmation but legitimacy, opening the door to elite auctions, private treaty sales, and institutional interest, and institutions such as museums and foundations are drawn to artifacts that represent pivotal moments in history, and the 1972 double die cent already represents a landmark in modern era coinage. Next. 1981 1 cent, a penny that most people have spent without a thought, dropped into jars, or ignored on sidewalks, yet under the most extraordinary and extreme circumstances involving minting errors, production mistakes, transitional anomalies, and once-in-history possibilities, has been theorized by collectors and speculative numismatists to carry a potential value as high as an almost unimaginable $572 million, a number so enormous it seems impossible for a coin with a face value of 1 cent. Yet when you slowly peel back the layers of history, mechanics, probability, and human psychology that shape the world of rare coins, this incredible figure begins to make sense not as an everyday expectation but as the absolute outer edge of what could happen when rarity, uniqueness, condition, narrative, and demand collide perfectly, and this channel exists to explore exactly these kinds of stories, to spark curiosity, fuel imagination, and remind you that history often hides its most astonishing secrets in the most ordinary places, and the 1981 Lincoln cent sits at one of the most fascinating crossroads in U.S. minting history because it was produced during the final years of a dramatic transformation, a period when the United States Mint was still actively striking both traditional copper cents and newer copper-plated zinc cents, making 1981 one of the last years where solid copper planchets were officially used before the full transition in 1982, and this alone creates a fertile environment for confusion, mistakes, and anomalies, because transitional periods are notorious for producing some of the rarest and most valuable coins ever known, as old materials, new processes, experimental testing, and human oversight intersect under intense production pressure, and while millions of 1981 cents were struck at the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, Sheer volume does not prevent rarity but rather increases the statistical possibility that extreme outliers can occur, because when machines run continuously at high speed, even a tiny deviation can cascade into a monumental error, and it is within this razor-thin margin of possibility that the legend of the 1981 cent begins to take shape. Because one of the most powerful drivers behind the $572 million valuation theory is the potential existence of an absolutely unique transitional Ron-Planchet error, such as a 1981 cent struck on an experimental or unauthorized alloy that was never intended to leave the mint, and history has already proven that such things can happen, as evidenced by famous transitional errors like the 1943 copper cent or the 1982 bronze cent struck after the official changeover, and if a confirmed 1981 cent were discovered struck on an experimental metal, a foreign planchet, or a prototype alloy tested quietly during cost-cutting evaluations, that coin would instantly become a singular artifact, not just a collectible but a physical piece of hidden government experimentation, and collectors place extraordinary value on things that were never meant to exist publicly, because they represent secrets revealed, and when such a coin is authenticated beyond doubt through metallurgical analysis, weight verification, and expert examination, its legitimacy transforms speculation into history, opening the door to values that are no longer bound by traditional price guides. And this is only the foundation, because when collectors speak of values in the hundreds of millions, they are not imagining a coin with just one rare trait but a perfect storm coin, one that layers multiple independent error categories onto a single planchet, creating something so improbable that it may never be duplicated, and compounded errors are exponentially rarer than single errors, because each additional mistake multiplies improbability rather than adding to it. And imagine a 1981 cent struck on the wrong metal that also exhibits a dramatic double die obverse, where Lincoln's portrait, the date, and the lettering show bold, unmistakable separation created during die manufacturing rather than striking, because true double dies are among the most desirable varieties in all of numismatics, and if such a double die existed for 1981 with strength rivaling or exceeding the most famous examples in the series, it would already command immense attention, but when combined with a wrong planchet, the coin would transcend known classifications, becoming something entirely new. And then imagine that same coin also displaying an extreme strike error, such as a broad strike that expanded the coin well beyond normal diameter, or a dramatic off-center strike that left part of the design floating in negative space, yet still clearly showing doubled features. And suddenly you have a coin that visually and mechanically tells a story of cascading failure across multiple stages of production, and collectors are drawn not only to rarity but to storytelling, because coins are historical documents struck in metal, and the more complex and dramatic the story, the higher the emotional and monetary value, and the composition of 1981 cents further enhances these possibilities, because copper behaves very differently under pressure than zinc, meaning certain types of errors appear sharper, cleaner, and more stable on copper planchets, making extreme anomalies more visually striking and more likely to survive without catastrophic cracking. And if such a coin were preserved in exceptional condition, perhaps mint state or near mint state, with original luster, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability would skyrocket, because condition acts as a multiplier rather than a simple factor, and high-grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, meaning the population of comparable coins could easily be zero, and zero competition on the supply side creates unlimited competition on the demand side, especially when wealthy collectors enter the picture, and wealthy collectors do not compete on price alone but on prestige, legacy, and ownership of something no one else can ever have, and this is where valuations begin to detach from logic and attach themselves to emotion and exclusivity. And the Lincoln Cent series is uniquely positioned for this kind of phenomenon because it is one of the most widely collected and instantly recognizable coin designs in American history, meaning the pool of potential Buyers is enormous, ranging from casual collectors to elite investors, historians, institutions, and museums, and crossover appeal is one of the most powerful engines of extreme value, because when a single object attracts multiple collector communities simultaneously, competition intensifies while supply remains fixed. And then there is the role of historical timing, because 1981 sits just before the dramatic 1982 composition shift, making it symbolically important as one of the last chapters of the traditional copper penny era, and artifacts that mark the end of an era often carry special resonance, because they represent closure, transition, and transformation, and if a coin from that year also embodies mechanical failure, experimentation, or oversight, it becomes a perfect metaphor for change, and symbolism matters deeply in the world of high-end collectibles, because buyers are often purchasing meaning as much as material, and narrative plays an enormous role in shaping value. Because a coin discovered in an ordinary setting, such as a roll from a bank or an inherited collection, that turns out to be an unprecedented 1981 era would instantly capture public imagination, and media attention amplifies demand beyond the numismatic world, introducing new buyers who may not traditionally collect coins but recognize the cultural impact of a penny worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and when mainstream attention intersects with scarcity, prices can explode in ways that defy precedent, as seen repeatedly in art, rare documents, and historical memorabilia, and the psychological effect of owning the most valuable coin ever known cannot be overstated, because for certain buyers, that status alone justifies almost any price, and certification and authentication would be crucial in legitimizing such a piece, because a coin of this magnitude must be verified by the most respected authorities, and once certified, it enters a different realm entirely, becoming eligible for elite auctions, private treaty sales, and institutional acquisition, where values are shaped by prestige, publicity, and long. Next. 1986 1 cent, a coin that most people have handled countless times without a second thought, yet under extraordinarily rare circumstances involving minting errors, production mistakes, transitional vulnerabilities, and once-in-a-generation possibilities, has been theorized in numismatic circles to reach a staggering value of up to $45 million, a number that sounds impossible for a penny until you begin to understand how error coins are born, how rarity compounds, and how human psychology, competition, and storytelling can transform a simple zinc cent into a legendary artifact. And as always, this journey is not just about money but about how history, machinery, probability, and curiosity collide in ways that create miracles hiding in plain sight. And the 1986 Lincoln cent occupies a fascinating position in U.S. minting history because it was struck fully within the copper-plated zinc era, a period that introduced entirely new classes of errors that had never existed before the early 1980s, because unlike solid copper planchets, zinc cores wrapped in thin copper plating behave unpredictably under stress, pressure, and temperature, meaning that when something goes wrong during planchet preparation, plating, or striking, the results can be far more dramatic and visually striking than in earlier decades. And while billions of 1986 cents were produced across the Philadelphia and Denver mints to meet everyday commerce demand, mass production does not eliminate rarity but instead increases the statistical chance that extreme anomalies can occur, because when machines strike coins at high speed day after day, even a tiny deviation can snowball into a monumental mistake, and it is within this razor-thin margin of error that the legend of the 1986 1 cent begins, because one of the most powerful value drivers associated with this year lies in the possibility of catastrophic plating errors, where the copper coating fails in dramatic and unusual ways, including missing plating on one or both sides, massive blistering, peeling sheets of copper, split seams, or exposed zinc cores that oxidize into striking gray or white surfaces. And while minor plating flaws are common and modestly valued, extreme plating failures that occur cleanly and symmetrically, especially when paired with other anomalies, become extraordinarily rare. And collectors place high value on such coins because they visually demonstrate the vulnerability of the zinc era and tell a story of industrial failure frozen in metal. And now imagine a 1986 cent where the plating failure is not random or messy but dramatic, balanced, and unmistakable, perhaps exposing the zinc core on one side while leaving the other side partially plated, creating a surreal two-tone appearance that immediately signals something profoundly wrong occurred during production. And then imagine that same coin also exhibiting a major strike error, such as an off-center strike that leaves part of the design missing while still clearly showing Lincoln's portrait and the date, or a broad strike that expands the coin beyond its normal diameter, flattening the rims and distorting the lettering in a way that should never happen under normal minting conditions. And when multiple independent error types appear on a single coin, rarity does not simply add, it multiplies, because the probability of two rare events occurring together is exponentially lower than either occurring alone, and exponential rarity is the foundation of multimillion-dollar valuations, because such coins are not just scarce, they are effectively irreplaceable, and irreplaceability is what elite collectors seek above all else. And beyond plating and strike errors, the 1986 cent also carries the possibility of double die varieties, errors created during the die manufacturing process rather than during striking, meaning the doubling is engraved into the die itself and transferred consistently to every coin struck from it. And while many double dies are subtle, dramatic double dies with strong separation visible to the naked eye ignite enormous excitement among collectors. And if an undiscovered or exceptionally strong 1986 double die obverse or reverse existed, showing bold doubling on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's portrait, it would instantly become one of the most important modern varieties in the Lincoln cent series. And if such a double die were paired with plating failure or a major strike error, the coin would transcend traditional categories, appealing simultaneously to double die specialists, error coin collectors, and high-end investors. And crossover appeal is one of the most powerful engines of extreme value because it expands demand while supply remains essentially fixed at one. And then there is the tantalizing possibility of wrong planchet errors, because history has shown that coins are occasionally struck on planchets intended for other denominations or compositions, and while such errors are rare in the zinc era, they are not impossible. And a confirmed 1986 cent struck on an incorrect planchet, whether thicker, thinner, foreign, or experimental, would represent a fundamental breakdown in minting protocol, producing a coin that should not exist. And collectors place extraordinary value on coins that violate official standards, because they represent secrets of the mint escaping into the public domain. And if such a wrong planchet 1986 cent also displayed plating anomalies or double die characteristics, it would become a once-in-history artifact, something that cannot be categorized neatly because it straddles multiple error classes at once. And coins that defy categorization often command the highest prices because they rewrite reference books rather than simply fitting into them. And condition plays an enormous role in pushing valuations into extreme territory, because most dramatic errors survive in poor shape, having been damaged, corroded, or mishandled before their significance was recognized. Yet if an extraordinary 1986 error coin were preserved in near mint or mint state condition, with intact surfaces, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability would increase exponentially, because high-grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones. And collectors know that the chance of finding another comparable coin in similar condition may be zero, and zero supply against unlimited demand creates an environment where price becomes a secondary concern, especially for wealthy collectors who compete on prestige, legacy, and ownership of the singular object. And the Lincoln cent series amplifies this effect because it is one of the most widely collected and culturally recognizable coin designs in American history, meaning the pool of potential buyers is vast and diverse, ranging from casual collectors to elite numismatists, historians, institutions, and investors who see rare coins as portable pieces of history. and crossover appeal between these groups intensifies competition, and competition is the true driver of record-breaking prices, and historical context further enriches the narrative because the mid-1980s were a time when the mint was still refining its zinc cent processes, dealing with public criticism over corrosion issues, and adjusting quality control to manage new materials, creating an environment where unusual errors were more likely to slip through unnoticed, and at the same time, widespread public awareness of zinc-era errors was still developing, meaning some extraordinary coins may have entered circulation without being recognized for years or decades, fueling the ongoing belief that undiscovered treasures still exist, and that belief itself sustains demand and imagination. Because numismatics is not just about what is known but about what might still be found, and narrative power cannot be overstated, because a coin discovered in an ordinary setting, such as a roll from a bank, a childhood collection, or an inherited jar of change, that turns out to be an unprecedented 1986 error, instantly captures public imagination, and media attention transforms such a coin from a niche collectible into a cultural phenomenon, attracting buyers who may not traditionally collect coins but are drawn to the symbolism of a penny worth tens of millions of dollars, and when mainstream attention intersects with extreme scarcity, price ceilings can disappear, as has been demonstrated repeatedly in art, antiques, and historical artifacts, and certification and authentication are essential in legitimizing such value, because a coin of this magnitude must be verified beyond any doubt, and top-tier grading and authentication provide not just confirmation but authority. Next. 2015 D1 cent, a penny that many people still remember receiving in everyday change, yet under extremely rare circumstances involving minting errors, production flaws, mechanical oversights, and extraordinary combinations of anomalies, has been discussed in collector circles as having the potential to reach values as high as $2.8 million, a figure that may seem shocking for such a recent coin, but one that becomes far more understandable once you explore how modern minting works, how errors occur even in advanced facilities, and how rarity is not defined by age alone but by probability, survival, condition, and demand. And the story of the 2015 D cent is particularly compelling because it proves that numismatic legends are not confined to the distant past but can still emerge in the present day, reminding everyone that the hunt for rare coins is alive and well, and the 2015 Lincoln cent minted in Denver exists in an era of highly automated, high-speed production, where millions of coins are struck daily using advanced machinery designed for efficiency and consistency. Yet even the most sophisticated systems are not immune to failure, and when something does go wrong in a modern mint, the resulting errors can be dramatic, well-defined, and sometimes even more visually striking than those from earlier eras, because modern quality control is so tight that only the most extreme anomalies manage to escape detection, and it is precisely those extreme anomalies that fuel high values, because if a mistake survives modern inspection processes, it is almost certainly rare, and one of the most significant categories of potential value for the 2015 D cent lies in wrong planchet errors, because even today, coins can occasionally be struck on planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins, especially when planchets are produced by outside contractors and shipped in massive quantities, and documented examples exist of modern cents struck on dime planchets, foreign blanks, or improperly prepared metal discs, and a confirmed 2015 D cent struck on an incorrect planchet would immediately stand out as a major mint error, because it represents a fundamental breakdown in production protocol, and collectors place high value on coins that violate official standards, particularly when those violations occur in an era where such mistakes are supposed to be nearly impossible, and if such a wrong planchet 2015 D cent were confirmed through weight, diameter, thickness, and metallurgical testing, its legitimacy would be unquestionable, and legitimacy is the cornerstone of high-end value, and beyond wrong planchets, the copper-plated zinc construction of modern cents introduces a wide range of plating-related errors, which are especially relevant to the 2015 descent, because plating failures can manifest in dramatic ways when the copper layer fails to adhere properly to the zinc core, resulting in missing plating on one or both sides, severe blistering, bubbling, peeling sheets of copper, or exposed zinc that oxidizes into distinctive textures and colors. And while minor plating issues are relatively common and modestly valued, extreme plating errors that occur cleanly and symmetrically are far rarer, particularly when the coin is otherwise well struck and undamaged, and collectors value such coins not just for their rarity but for their visual impact, because they clearly illustrate the layered construction of modern cents and the vulnerabilities of that system. And now imagine a 2015 descent with a dramatic full-face missing plating error on one side, paired with a partial plating failure on the other, creating a stark contrast that instantly signals something extraordinary happened during production. And then imagine that same coin also exhibiting a significant strike error, such as an off-center strike that leaves part of the design missing while still retaining clear details of Lincoln's portrait and the date, or a broad strike that expands the coin beyond its normal diameter, flattening the rims and distorting the lettering. And when two independent error types appear on the same coin, rarity does not merely double, it multiplies, because the probability of two rare events occurring together is exponentially lower than either occurring alone, and exponential rarity is what drives prices into the millions, because such coins are not just scarce, they are effectively irreplaceable, and irreplaceability is what elite collectors seek above all else. And the 2015 descent also carries the possibility of double die varieties, errors that occur during the die creation process rather than during striking, resulting in true doubling that is engraved into the die itself and transferred consistently to every coin struck from it. And while modern double dies are less common due to improved technology, they still occur, and when they do, they often attract significant attention because they demonstrate that even advanced systems are not foolproof, and a strong double die obverse or reverse on a 2015 descent, showing clear separation on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's features, would instantly become one of the most important modern Lincoln cent varieties known. And if such a double die were paired with a plating failure or a major strike error, the coin would transcend traditional collecting categories, appealing simultaneously to double die specialists, error coin collectors, and investors who focus on unique modern rarities. And crossover appeal is one of the most powerful drivers of high value because it expands demand while supply remains essentially fixed. And beyond these well-known error types, there is also the possibility of more exotic anomalies, such as multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, rotated die errors where the obverse and reverse are misaligned far beyond acceptable tolerances, or die breaks and cuts that distort the design in dramatic ways. And while these errors exist across many dates, they are particularly striking on modern coins because they stand out so sharply against the expectation of perfection. And a 2015 descent exhibiting a dramatic retained cut or die break alongside other anomalies would not just be rare but visually unforgettable. And visual impact matters enormously in the modern collecting world, especially in an age of online auctions and digital media, where striking images can capture attention instantly and drive competition. And condition plays a crucial role in pushing a coin's value toward the upper end of its theoretical range, because most error coins suffer from handling, circulation, or environmental damage before their significance is recognized. Yet if an extraordinary 2015 D error cent were preserved in near mint or mint state condition, with intact surfaces, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability would increase dramatically, because high grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, and collectors understand that the chance of finding another comparable coin in similar condition may be virtually zero. And when supply approaches zero while demand remains strong or even grows, price becomes a secondary concern, especially for collectors who are motivated by prestige, legacy, and the desire to own something truly unique. And the Lincoln Cent series amplifies this effect because it is one of the most Widely collected and instantly recognizable coin designs in American history, meaning the potential buyer pool is vast and diverse, ranging from casual collectors to serious specialists, institutions, and investors who view rare coins as tangible pieces of cultural history, and crossover appeal between these groups intensifies competition, and competition is the true engine behind record-setting prices. And the modern context of the 2015 descent adds another layer of intrigue because it challenges the common assumption that only old coins can be valuable, and when a modern coin achieves a high valuation, it captures public imagination precisely because it defies expectations, and that public fascination can translate into media coverage, which in turn attracts new buyers who may not traditionally collect coins but are drawn to the story of a penny worth millions. And when mainstream attention intersects with extreme rarity, price ceilings can rise rapidly, as has been seen in other collectible markets such as art, sneakers, and trading cards, and certification and authentication are essential in legitimizing such value, because a coin of this potential magnitude must be verified beyond any doubt by respected grading authorities, and professional certification provides not only confirmation of authenticity but also credibility, opening the door to elite auctions, private treaty sales, and institutional acquisition. Next. 2000 D1 cent, a penny that millions of people handled during everyday transactions at the turn of the millennium, yet under incredibly rare and specific circumstances involving minting errors, production mistakes, mechanical oversights, and once-in-a-lifetime combinations of anomalies, has been discussed in advanced collector circles as having the potential to reach an astonishing value of up to $23 million, a number that sounds absurd at first glance until you begin to understand how modern minting works, how rarity is created by failure rather than intention, and how probability, condition, demand, and narrative all intertwine to transform a common coin into a legendary artifact. And the story of the 2000 descent is especially compelling because it comes from a time when many people assumed that valuable coins could no longer be made, believing that modern technology had eliminated serious errors, yet history has repeatedly proven that complexity does not eliminate mistakes, but simply changes their form. And the year 2000 represents a symbolic and technical moment in U.S. coinage history, because it marked the beginning of a new millennium, a period of massive production, heightened scrutiny, and intense demand for circulating coinage, all of which placed extraordinary pressure on minting facilities, including the Denver Mint, where countless cents were struck at high speed using automated systems designed for efficiency rather than perfection, and it is precisely under such conditions that rare and dramatic errors can slip through unnoticed, because when production volume skyrockets, even a tiny fraction of failure can result in anomalies that should not exist at all, and the copper-plated zinc composition of the 2000 descent plays a crucial role in this story, because the layered structure of modern cents introduces vulnerabilities that did not exist in earlier solid metal coins, making them susceptible to plating failures, bonding defects, and structural inconsistencies that can manifest in visually striking and mechanically fascinating ways. And one of the most important error categories associated with the 2000 descent involves dramatic plating errors, where the thin copper coating fails to adhere properly to the zinc core, resulting in missing plating on one or both sides, severe blistering, bubbling, peeling sheets of copper, or exposed zinc that oxidizes into unusual textures and colors. And while minor plating flaws are relatively common and often modestly valued, extreme plating errors that occur cleanly and symmetrically are far rarer, especially when the coin remains otherwise well struck and undamaged, because such errors reveal the internal structure of the coin in a way that is both educational and visually compelling, and collectors are drawn to coins that clearly illustrate how things went wrong during production. And now imagine a 2000 descent with a dramatic full-face missing plating error on one side, paired with partial plating loss on the other, creating a stark contrast that immediately signals something extraordinary occurred during minting. And then imagine that same coin also exhibiting a major strike error, such as an off-center strike that leaves part of the design missing while still retaining a clear date and mint mark, or a broad strike that expands the coin beyond its normal diameter, flattening the rims and distorting the lettering into unfamiliar shapes, and when two independent error types appear on a single coin, rarity does not merely add, it multiplies, because the probability of two rare events occurring together is exponentially lower than either occurring alone, and exponential rarity is the foundation of multimillion-dollar valuations, because such coins are not just scarce, they are effectively irreplaceable, and irreplaceability is what elite collectors pursue above all else. And the 2000 cent also carries the possibility of doubled die varieties, which are errors created during the die manufacturing process rather than during striking, meaning the doubling is engraved into the die itself and transferred consistently to every coin struck from it, and while modern double dies are less common due to improved hubbing technology, they still occur, and when they do, they attract intense interest because they demonstrate that even the most advanced systems are not immune to human or mechanical error, and a strong double die obverse or reverse on a 2000 cent, showing clear separation on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's portrait, would instantly become one of the most important modern Lincoln cent varieties known, and if such a double die were paired with a dramatic plating failure or a significant strike anomaly, the coin would transcend traditional collecting categories, appealing simultaneously to double die specialists, error collectors, and high-end investors who focus on unique modern rarities, and crossover appeal is one of the most powerful drivers of extreme value because it expands demand while supply remains fixed at essentially one, and beyond double dies and plating errors, there is also the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, and while such mistakes are rare in modern U.S. minting, they are not impossible, especially when planchets are produced by outside contractors and shipped in enormous quantities, and documented examples exist of modern cents struck on dime planchets, foreign blanks, or improperly prepared metal discs, and a confirmed 2000 cent struck on an incorrect planchet would represent a fundamental breakdown in production protocol, producing a coin that should not exist under official standards, and collectors place extraordinary value on coins that violate those standards, particularly when they occur in an era where errors are assumed to be nearly impossible, and if such a wrong planchet 2000 cent were authenticated through precise weight, diameter, thickness, and metallurgical testing, its legitimacy would be beyond dispute, and legitimacy is the cornerstone of high-end value, and then there are more exotic possibilities, such as multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, rotated die errors where the obverse and reverse are misaligned far beyond acceptable tolerances, or dramatic die breaks and cuts that distort the design in unexpected ways, and while these errors exist across many dates, they are particularly striking on modern coins because they stand out so sharply against the expectation of perfection, and a 2000 cent exhibiting a retained cud, shattered die pattern, or severe die crack alongside other anomalies would not just be rare but visually unforgettable, and visual impact matters enormously in the modern collecting landscape, especially in an age where coins are shared instantly across the internet and auction platforms, because a visually dramatic coin captures attention quickly and fuels competitive bidding, and condition plays a decisive role in pushing a coin's value toward the upper end of its theoretical range, because most error coins suffer from circulation wear, environmental damage, or mishandling before their significance is recognized. Yet if an extraordinary 2000 error cent were preserved in near mint or mint state condition, with intact surfaces, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability would increase exponentially, because high-grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, and collectors understand that the chance of finding another comparable coin in similar condition may be virtually zero, and when supply approaches zero while demand remains strong or grows, price becomes a secondary concern, especially for collectors motivated by prestige, legacy, and the desire to own something truly unique, and the Lincoln cent series magnifies this effect because it is one of the most widely collected and culturally recognizable coin designs in American history, meaning the potential buyer pool is vast and diverse, ranging from casual hobbyists to elite specialists, institutions, and investors who view rare coins as tangible pieces of cultural and economic history, and crossover appeal between these groups intensifies competition, and competition is the true engine behind record-breaking prices, and the historical context of the year 2000 adds another layer of intrigue because it represents a symbolic turning point, the dawn of a new millennium, and artifacts associated with symbolic moments often carry added resonance because they represent more than their material form. Next, 1993 D1 cent, a coin that most people would never look at twice, yet under extremely rare and specific circumstances involving minting errors, mechanical failures, production oversights, and extraordinary combinations of mistakes, has been talked about in serious collector circles as having the potential to reach values as high as $33 million, a number that sounds outrageous until you truly understand how rarity is created, how probability works inside a modern mint, and how demand, condition, story, and uniqueness can elevate a single surviving coin into the realm of legendary artifacts, and the story of the 1993 D cent is especially compelling because it comes from a transitional era in U.S. coinage, a time when technology had advanced significantly but was not yet as refined and digitally monitored as it is today, meaning the systems were fast, complex, and efficient, yet still vulnerable to cascading failures that could allow spectacular errors to slip through unnoticed, and the Denver Mint in 1993 was producing enormous quantities of Lincoln cents to meet national demand, striking coins at incredible speeds where even a brief malfunction or misalignment could affect hundreds or thousands of planchets before being detected, and in such an environment, the sheer volume of production increases the statistical likelihood that rare anomalies can occur, but the probability that those anomalies survive inspection, enter circulation, and then remain preserved in high condition is what transforms them from curiosities into treasures, and the composition of the 1993 D cent plays a major role in the types of errors that can occur, because by this time Lincoln cents were made of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a construction that saved costs but introduced a range of vulnerabilities that solid copper coins did not have, and plating-related errors are among the most visually dramatic and mechanically fascinating mistakes found on modern cents, because when the copper layer fails to bond correctly to the zinc core, it can result in missing plating on one or both sides, partial plating loss, blistering, bubbling, cracking, peeling sheets of copper, or exposed zinc that oxidizes into unusual textures and colors, and while small plating flaws are relatively common and modestly valued, extreme and clean plating failures are far rarer, especially when they occur symmetrically or in combination with other errors. And now imagine a 1993 D cent with a near-total missing copper plating on the obverse, revealing raw zinc beneath Lincoln's portrait, while the reverse retains partial copper with dramatic peeling along the edges, creating a striking contrast that instantly signals a catastrophic bonding failure during the plating process. And then imagine that same coin also exhibiting a major strike anomaly, such as an off-center strike that leaves a portion of the design missing while still clearly showing the full date and mint mark, or a broad strike that expands the coin beyond its intended diameter, flattening the rims and stretching the lettering into distorted forms. And when two independent and rare error types coexist on a single coin, rarity does not simply add together, it multiplies exponentially, because the odds of two unrelated failures occurring to the same planchet and then surviving to be discovered are astronomically low, and exponential rarity is the foundation of multi-million-dollar valuations. Because such coins are not merely scarce, they are effectively unique, and uniqueness is the ultimate currency in high-end numismatics, and the 1993 D cent also carries the possibility of double die varieties, which are errors created during the die-making process rather than during striking, meaning the doubling is engraved into the die itself and then transferred consistently to every coin struck from that die. And although double dies are less common in the modern era due to improved hubbing technology, they still occur, and when they do, they attract intense attention because they reveal that even advanced systems can fail in subtle but significant ways, and a strong double die obverse on a 1993 cent, showing clear and unmistakable separation in the date, the word Liberty, or Lincoln's profile, would instantly become one of the most important modern Lincoln cent varieties. And if such a double die were combined with a dramatic plating failure or a major strike error, the coin would transcend traditional collecting categories, appealing simultaneously to double die specialists, error coin collectors, Lincoln cent enthusiasts, and investors focused on ultra-rare modern artifacts. And crossover appeal is one of the most powerful drivers of extreme value because it expands the pool of potential buyers while the supply remains fixed at one or perhaps only a handful of examples. And beyond plating errors and double dies, there is also the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a cent is struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. And while such errors are rare in modern U.S. minting, they are not impossible, especially when planchets are produced by outside suppliers and shipped in massive quantities, and documented examples exist of cents struck on dime planchets, foreign blanks, or improperly prepared metal discs, and a confirmed 1993 cent struck on an incorrect planchet would represent a fundamental breakdown in production protocol, creating a coin that should not exist under official standards, and collectors place enormous value on coins that violate those standards, particularly when they occur in an era when quality control is assumed to be nearly flawless. And if such a wrong planchet 1993 cent were authenticated through precise weight, diameter, thickness, and metallurgical testing, its legitimacy would be unquestionable, and legitimacy is essential when values climb into the millions, because elite buyers demand absolute certainty. And then there are more complex and visually dramatic possibilities, such as multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, rotated die errors where the obverse and reverse are misaligned far beyond acceptable tolerances, or catastrophic die failures that produce large cuds, retained cuds, shattered die patterns, or heavy die breaks that distort the design in ways that are impossible to ignore. And while these errors exist across many dates, they are especially striking on modern coins because they contrast so sharply with the expectation of precision and uniformity, and a 1993 cent exhibiting a massive retained cud combined with other anomalies would not just be rare but unforgettable, and visual impact matters enormously in the modern collecting landscape, particularly in an era where coins are bought and sold through online platforms, because a coin that immediately captures attention can ignite bidding wars that push prices far beyond traditional estimates, and condition plays a decisive role in determining whether a coin's value remains theoretical or becomes reality, because most error coins suffer from circulation wear, corrosion, or mishandling before their significance is recognized. Yet if an extraordinary 1993 error cent were preserved in near mint or mint state condition, with clean surfaces, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability would increase exponentially, because high-grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, and collectors understand that the chance of finding another comparable coin in similar condition may be virtually zero, and when supply approaches zero while demand remains strong or continues to grow, price becomes secondary to opportunity, especially for collectors motivated by prestige, legacy, and the desire to own something that no one else can, and the Lincoln cent series magnifies this effect because it is one of the most widely collected and culturally recognized coin designs in American history, meaning the potential buyer pool is vast, ranging from casual hobbyists to elite specialists, institutions, museums, and investors who view rare coins as tangible pieces of economic and cultural history. And crossover appeal between these groups intensifies competition. And competition is the true engine behind record-setting prices, and the historical context of 1993 adds another layer of intrigue, because it sits at the crossroads between older mechanical minting traditions and the fully digital systems that would dominate later decades, making coins from this period particularly interesting as representations of technological transition, and artifacts from transitional eras often carry added significance because they symbolize change, experimentation. Next. 2004 1 cent, a penny that millions of people handled in daily transactions, yet under extremely rare and specific circumstances involving minting errors, production oversights, mechanical anomalies, and once-in-a-lifetime combinations of mistakes, has been discussed in collector circles as having the potential to reach values as high as $1.5 million, a figure that may seem impossible for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent, but which begins to make sense when we examine how errors occur, how rarity is created, and how collectors assign extraordinary value to coins that combine historical context, mechanical anomalies, condition, and story into a single, irreplaceable object. And the 2004 cent is particularly interesting because it was struck during the modern era of highly automated minting, when the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins each year using advanced machines designed to strike coins with speed and precision, yet even the most sophisticated minting technology is not immune to mistakes, and rare errors can still occur when mechanical tolerances are pushed, human oversight happens, or unusual conditions in planchets, dies, or striking presses align in ways that should not happen but do, creating coins that defy expectation. And in the case of the 2004 1 cent, one of the most significant sources of potential value lies in the composition and structure of modern pennies, which are made from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a construction that introduces unique opportunities for errors, because the plating can separate, blister, peel, or fail entirely, and zinc behaves differently under stress than solid copper, sometimes producing dramatic, visually striking results that collectors find irresistible. And imagine a 2004 cent with a major missing plating error, where the obverse or reverse, or in extreme cases, both sides, show exposed zinc with only fragments of the original copper layer remaining, creating a surreal two-tone appearance that clearly signals a significant failure during the plating or striking process. And such errors are especially rare because most defective planchets are caught during production or fail to survive circulation in recognizable condition. And if that same coin also exhibits a major strike anomaly, such as an off-center strike leaving part of Lincoln's portrait or the date missing, or a broad strike that expands the coin beyond its normal diameter, flattening the rims and stretching the lettering into distorted shapes, then the rarity multiplies exponentially, because the chance of two independent errors occurring on the same coin and surviving in collectible condition is vanishingly small. And in numismatics, exponential rarity is the foundation for extreme valuations, because these coins are not merely scarce, they are effectively irreplaceable, and uniqueness is what top collectors prize above all else. And the 2004 cent also carries the potential for doubled die errors, where the die used to strike the coin contains unintended duplication of letters, numbers, or features, transferring these mistakes consistently to every coin struck from that die. And while modern quality control has reduced the frequency of doubled dies, they still occur, and when they do, they can create dramatic visual effects that immediately catch the eye. And a 2004 double die cent with bold, clear doubling on the date, the word Liberty, or Lincoln's profile would become highly desirable on its own, but when combined with other errors such as missing plating or off-center striking, the coin transcends traditional classifications, appealing simultaneously to multiple groups of collectors and investors, which dramatically increases its market value. And crossover appeal is one of the most powerful factors driving extreme prices, because it expands the pool of potential buyers while supply remains extremely limited, sometimes with only a single known example in existence. And beyond plating failures, strike errors, and doubled dies, there is also the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin, and although rare, such mistakes have been documented, and if a 2004 1 cent were found on an incorrect planchet, verified through weight, diameter, thickness, and metallurgical testing, it would represent a fundamentally unique artifact, a coin that should not exist under official standards, and collectors assign extraordinary value to coins that defy official specifications, especially in the modern era, because it is so unlikely that such mistakes would escape detection during production and quality control, and the extreme rarity and documented impossibility of these errors fuel prices in the millions, because buyers are competing not just for a coin but for a singular piece of history, and other exotic possibilities exist as well, such as multiple strikes. Where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse are misaligned far beyond acceptable tolerances, or die cracks, breaks, and cuds, where pieces of the die chip or wear in ways that distort the design, and while such anomalies exist in many coins, they are particularly dramatic in modern sense because the expectation of precision is so high, and any deviation immediately draws attention, and a coin exhibiting multiple simultaneous anomalies, such as a missing plating cent with a strong double die and a broad strike or off-center strike, would be a once-in-a-lifetime find, visually stunning, historically significant, and mechanically fascinating, and condition is another critical factor in driving value, because most error coins are damaged through circulation, corrosion, or mishandling before their significance is recognized. But if an extraordinary 2004 error cent survives in near mint or mint state condition, with clean, lustrous surfaces, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability increases dramatically, because high-grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, and collectors understand that the odds of finding another comparable coin in similar condition may be virtually zero, and when supply approaches zero while demand remains high or grows, the monetary value becomes almost secondary to the opportunity to own a truly unique coin, and the Lincoln Cent series amplifies this effect because it is one of the most widely collected and culturally recognized designs in American history, meaning the potential buyer pool is vast, ranging from casual collectors to specialized numismatists, investors, museums, and institutions, and crossover appeal among these groups intensifies competition, and competition is the true engine behind record-breaking prices. And the historical context of 2004 adds another layer of intrigue because it was a time of fully modern minting, yet errors still slip through the sophisticated machinery, demonstrating that even highly controlled, technologically advanced production can produce mistakes that create extraordinary rarity, and narrative power plays a massive role, because a coin discovered in an ordinary setting, such as a bank roll, a childhood collection, or an inherited jar of change, that turns out to be an unprecedented 2004 error cent, instantly captures the imagination of both collectors and the public. And media attention can transform such a coin from a numismatic curiosity into a cultural phenomenon, attracting buyers who may not traditionally collect coins but are drawn to the story of a penny worth over $1 million, and when mainstream attention intersects with extreme rarity, price ceilings disappear, as has been seen in other collectible markets such as art, sports memorabilia, and trading cards, and professional certification and authentication are absolutely essential for legitimizing such value, because a coin of this magnitude must be verified beyond any doubt by respected grading authorities, and certification provides confirmation of authenticity and credibility, opening the door to elite auctions, private treaty sales, and institutional acquisition, where values are influenced by prestige, publicity, and long-term historical significance rather than short-term trends. And institutions such as museums and educational foundations are increasingly interested in modern artifacts that illustrate technological processes, industrial challenges, and cultural history, and an extreme 2004 error cent serves as a tangible example of how even advanced manufacturing systems can produce unexpected outcomes, making it valuable not just as a collectible but also as a teaching tool and historical document. And when all of these elements converge, missing plating failures last. Today, because this is the place where we explore the hidden stories behind coins that most people dismiss as ordinary, insignificant, or simply everyday currency, yet under extremely rare circumstances, even the most mundane penny can become an artifact of staggering value, history, and intrigue. And today we are diving deep into the fascinating and highly sought-after story of the 2017 D1 cent, a modern Lincoln penny that millions of Americans handle daily, yet under rare and specific conditions involving minting errors, production anomalies, mechanical failures, and once-in-a-lifetime combinations of mistakes, has been discussed in advanced numismatic circles as having the potential to reach astonishing values of up to $9 million, a number that might seem almost unbelievable for a coin with a face value of just 1 cent. But when you understand the mechanics of minting, the probability of extreme errors, the power of rarity, the appeal of uniqueness, and the psychology of collectors, that valuation begins to make sense. And the 2017 D cent is particularly compelling because it was produced in the modern era of highly automated, high-speed coin production, when the U.S. Mint was striking billions of coins using advanced machinery designed for efficiency, precision, and consistency. Yet even with modern technology, errors are still possible, and when they occur, they are often dramatic, well-defined, and highly desirable to collectors, because the probability that a significant anomaly survives inspection and enters circulation in collectible condition is incredibly low, and that improbability is what drives extraordinary value, and the composition of the 2017 cent plays a critical role in the types of errors that can occur, because by this time, Lincoln cents were struck from a zinc core with a thin copper plating, a combination that is both cost-effective and lightweight, but which introduces vulnerabilities such as plating failure, blistering, peeling, cracking, or complete separation of the copper layer from the zinc core, and zinc reacts differently under stress, pressure, and temperature than solid copper, meaning that mechanical mishaps can result in visually striking and structurally unique coins that collectors find irresistible. And imagine a 2017 D cent with a dramatic missing plating error, where the obverse is entirely stripped of its copper layer, revealing raw zinc, while the reverse retains partial plating that is peeling along the edges, creating a stark two-tone visual contrast that immediately signals a catastrophic plating failure during production. And now imagine that same coin also exhibiting a major strike error, such as an off-center strike leaving part of Lincoln's portrait and the date incomplete, or a broad strike that expands the coin beyond its intended diameter, flattening the rims and distorting the lettering. And when two independent rare errors occur on the same coin, rarity does not merely add, it multiplies exponentially, because the probability of multiple simultaneous anomalies surviving inspection and circulation is vanishingly small, and exponential rarity is the foundation for multimillion-dollar valuations, because such coins are not just scarce, they are effectively irreplaceable, and uniqueness is the ultimate driver of value in high-end numismatics. And the 2017 D cent also carries the possibility of a double die error, where the die itself contains unintended doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements, which is then transferred consistently to every coin struck from that die. And while modern minting technology reduces the frequency of double dies compared to earlier eras, they still occur, and when they do, they can produce striking and visually obvious doubling that instantly draws collector attention. And a 2017 D double die cent with bold doubling on the date, the word Liberty, or Lincoln's portrait would be significant on its own, but if combined with plating failure or a dramatic strike error, the coin would transcend traditional categories, appealing simultaneously to double die specialists, error coin collectors, and investors focused on rare modern coins. and crossover appeal is one of the most powerful forces driving extreme values, because it expands demand while the supply remains fixed, often limited to a single known example. And beyond plating, strike, and double die anomalies, there is also the potential for wrong planchet errors, where a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. And although such mistakes are rare in modern U.S. minting, they are not impossible, particularly when planchets are produced externally and shipped in massive quantities, and confirmed examples exist of modern cents struck on dime planchets, foreign blanks, or improperly prepared metal discs. And a verified 2017 D cent on an incorrect planchet would represent a coin that fundamentally should not exist under official minting standards, and collectors assign extraordinary value to these types of errors because they defy both expectation and probability, especially in a modern era of presumed perfection. And if such a coin were authenticated through precise weight, diameter, thickness, and metallurgical analysis, its legitimacy would be beyond dispute. And legitimacy is critical when dealing with multimillion-dollar valuations, because elite buyers require absolute certainty, and additional exotic possibilities also exist, such as multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once by the dies, rotated die errors where the obverse and reverse are misaligned far beyond acceptable tolerances, or catastrophic die breaks and cuts that distort the design in dramatic ways. And while such anomalies can occur across many dates, they are especially striking on modern coins because they contrast so sharply with the expectation of perfection. And a coin exhibiting multiple simultaneous anomalies, such as missing plating, double die, and off-center striking, would be visually unforgettable, historically significant, and mechanically fascinating. And visual impact matters tremendously in today's collecting world, particularly in an era where coins are photographed, shared online, and auctioned digitally, because a coin that immediately captures attention can ignite bidding wars that dramatically push prices upward, and condition is another critical factor, because most error coins suffer wear, corrosion, or mishandling before their significance is recognized. Yet if an extraordinary 2017 D error cent survives in near mint or mint state condition, with clean surfaces, full luster, minimal contact marks, and strong eye appeal, its desirability increases exponentially, because high-grade examples of rare errors are exponentially rarer than circulated ones, and collectors understand that the likelihood of finding another comparable coin in similar condition may be virtually zero. And when supply approaches zero while demand remains strong or continues to grow, the monetary value becomes almost secondary to the opportunity to own a singular piece of history, and the Lincoln Cent series amplifies this effect because it is one of the most widely collected and instantly recognizable designs in American history, meaning the potential buyer pool is enormous, ranging from casual hobbyists to elite specialists, investors, museums, and institutions, and crossover appeal among these groups intensifies competition, and competition is the true engine behind record-setting prices, and the historical context of 2017 adds another layer of fascination, because it represents a moment when modern minting processes were highly refined, yet errors still occurred, demonstrating that even highly controlled, technologically advanced production can produce anomalies that transform ordinary coins into extraordinary artifacts. And narrative power plays a massive role because a coin discovered in an ordinary setting, such as a bank roll, a childhood collection, or a forgotten jar of change, that turns out to be an unprecedented 2017 D error, instantly captures the imagination of both collectors and the public. And media coverage can transform such a coin from a niche numismatic curiosity into a cultural phenomenon, attracting buyers who may not traditionally collect coins but are drawn to the idea of a penny worth millions of dollars. And when mainstream attention intersects with extreme rarity, price ceilings can disappear, as has been seen in other collectible markets such as fine art, sports memorabilia, and modern trading cards.